This is it. This is it. The game a lot of people have been waiting for. Remember, it should have been played in October. Should have been played in October, but it is now being played in February. Manchester City versus Arsenal at the Emirates, and it's gonna be a wild game. It's gonna be a wild game. For Arsenal, unfortunately, if this game was played in October, they would have had Gabriel Jesus. They don't. They do not have a Gabriel Jesus for this match. Not discrediting Eddie Nketiah, but again, you just want your full squad. And that seems to go, real quick, just a little bit of a rant. It seems to go unnoticed. Like, oh, Arsenal don't have injuries. Arsenal, are getting lucky. They haven't had Jesus since the World Cup restarted. Since the restart from the World Cup. They still won't have him for the rest of this month. To arguably their talisman, the one of their best players. They haven't had Smith Rowe. Hello, Sky. I know. Hello, Sky. Everyone say hello, Sky. They haven't had Smith Rowe all season. Literally, Emile Smith Rowe, leading goal scorer for Arsenal last season, has not been fit all season. So I don't want to hear this nonsense about Arsenal being lucky and being lucky with injuries. They're missing two of their best players in Smith Rowe and in Jesus. Smith Rowe's been all season. That's people have forgotten. I know, Sky. I know people have forgotten. And you have to wait. I'm recording. Wait. I know. This game is huge, isn't it? Yeah, I know. It's a huge game, isn't it? I know. But forget that and forget the game on the weekend or even the games on the weekend. I was going to make a post-match review for that, but it is what it is. I think it's been talked to death. What happened in the Arsenal-Brentford game. And don't forget Brighton versus Crystal Palace and the VAR mistake there. Don't forget Chelsea and West Ham where there was just a blatant handball in the final few minutes. Should have been a penalty for Chelsea. Wasn't called. Wasn't reviewed by VAR. VAR just didn't think it was a penalty. Don't forget the Wolves red card 30 minutes into the game on Lamina for just walking up to the referee and somehow picking up a second yellow card for that. The referees are just straight up garbage in the Premier League. We know that. I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories or, Lee Mason. He was the same same VAR ref at the Manchester United game, and he was the one that ruled out the Martinelli goal. Like, I'm not going to go into conspiracy theories of all that nonsense. They're just bad. Like, it happened to Manchester City too. Right? The Rashford offside goal that was counted essentially because Bruno Fernandes ended up shooting and it worked. Like, Manchester City have gotten screwed out of it too. So, like, I'm not going to, sit here and cry wolf about it because a lot of teams this season have benefited and a lot of teams this season have been screwed because the referees are just straight up incompetent. And sometimes it'll go your way and sometimes it doesn't. Speaking about the game against Manchester City, Arsenal versus Manchester City on Wednesday, we're going to be previewing that right now. This is the biggest game, in my opinion, in the history of Emirates Stadium. It really is. I know people argue some of the Champions League games, specifically like the tie with Manchester United in 2008. It's, in my opinion, for the games at the Emirates Stadium, this is the biggest. We are in February. You can't say Arsenal are not in a title hunt. They are. They are in a title battle with Manchester City. It's over halfway through the season. It's there, and it's just this is the biggest game I can remember. In the history of the Emirates. The atmosphere, the vibe, what's at stake, it's huge. There's literally, like, you don't win the Premier League, obviously, if you win tomorrow. You don't lose the Premier League if you lose tomorrow. Nothing happens if you draw either. Like, for Manchester City and for Arsenal, it's not the end of the world, but it means a lot in terms of mentality, in terms of momentum, in terms of, in terms of all that. Going into the game, I do believe Arsenal have more pressure under them because they have dropped points to Everton. They have dropped points to Brentford. The way they drop points to Brentford, they could feel a little bit aggrieved. They could use that as momentum. They could use that as a galvanizer, use that as energy. I think the fans are going to be up for it as well because it's been admitted that they basically got screwed out of 3 points, and they're going to use that. For Manchester City, I never really truly believe the pressure will always be on them more than Arsenal, mainly because they've won it 4 out of 5 times. And for Manchester City, they're focused. I mean, they're never going to admit it, but for Manchester City, for their fans, for the players, for the manager, for the club, they want the Champions League. And even with the now alleged, breaches hanging over their head, they want that Champions League as soon as possible. Because if what happens if If they get hit with points deductions, relegation, what if they get found guilty and next thing you know, they won't be in the Champions League for a few years? That might happen. So they want the Champions League. That is their focus. And yes, they will be focusing on the game. They will want to win it. Of course, they want to win another Premier League title, but the pressure is never really going to be on them because they've won it already so much. The pressure for Manchester City will be on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in the Champions League. Like, that is where the pressure will be for them. For the league, the pressure will be on Arsenal. So it's very, in my opinion, it's very clear who the pressure is on. The pressure is going to be on Arsenal. I believe the players will feel it. More importantly, I believe the fans will feel it. You even felt it again in the Brentford game. The home crowd, for the first time all season, were fairly nervous. There were times in the first half where they were nervous. The fans are starting to feel the pressure. And so Arsenal, Arteta, the players, the fans, they're going to have to deal with that. City are going to come in there as the champions. But the thing is, City need a win. They really need a win. I think in both games, I think, we'll see what the situation in the table is in late April when Arsenal travel to the Etihad. But I think in both games, the away team will need to win. So Manchester City needs to win this match, and I believe Arsenal at the Etihad will need to win. If they both end up in draws, I think that's good for Arsenal. And later on, I think, depending on where the table is, it also could be good for Arsenal. We'll see. But for this one in particular, a draw is not going to hurt anything. But I believe Arsenal would feel... Let me put it this way. A win for Arsenal will feel bigger than a win for City. Because City still wouldn't have it in their control. Arsenal still have a game in hand. But if Arsenal win, it feels like a statement, right? Like 6 points ahead with a game in hand. That would feel like a statement. A draw, and it's kind of like everything continues on as is, right? So the pressure will kind of stay the same, and it'll be like... And a lot of these big games, a lot of them, if you guys remember the Manchester City-Liverpool title deciders, a lot of them end in draws. I mean, it's such close battles that, they do end in draws. So if I were a betting man, I would bet on a draw, in my opinion. I don't know if either team can really get one over the other, but we will see. I think it's time. Arsenal have not beaten City in the league in a very long time. I think it's time for them to show up, and it's very similar to like when they couldn't beat Liverpool for a while, or where they couldn't win at Tottenham away. This is one of those things. Can you beat Manchester City, home or away? This is the home fixture. You have the advantage. Can you beat Manchester City? Erling Haaland came off at halftime during the City game against Aston Villa. Don't think there's any issue there. I think he will be just fine. It's mind games. Pep and Arteta both do the same thing. Mind games. I believe he will be fit. For the Arsenal game, I believe he will start. And for Arsenal, the only real question mark is Trossard and Martinelli. That's the real question mark going on, because Martinelli, it's very clear he's had a pretty big dip in form. I don't think it's all his fault. It's, him and Eddie Nketiah don't really have a great link up. Jesus would go all around the pitch, which would allow Martinelli to drift into the center. Martinelli's more of an inside forward. That's where Eddie plays. Eddie stays in the center. He occupies those spaces. And so him and Eddie just are not on the same wavelength. You saw that multiple times in the Brentford game. They don't have that chemistry on the pitch. And so that's the main issue with Martinelli right now. He's missing Gabriel Jesus. It is no surprise that since Jesus has been out of the squad, Martinelli has suffered. And that is when Martinelli's dip has started. It came after the World Cup. And Jesus has not been in the lineup for any of the games. And so, it's a little bit worrying that Martinelli has to rely on someone that much. But that is where the dip of form comes. Trossard's more of a player that can come inside. But he's more of he has more control. He can link up better than Martinelli. So I feel like that's why his chemistry with Eddie Nketiah is a little bit better. But what do you do in this game? This game is going to be completely different than the previous games Arsenal have played. There will be space. Manchester City will attack. I will never in my lifetime see a Pep Guardiola team sit in a low block for the whole game. It's just not going to happen. So that there's going to be more space, and Martinelli thrives on that space. So do you play Trossard, who has less pace but is better in tighter areas? Or do you play Martinelli, who's out of form, but you believe he will have a lot of space to go up against Manchester City, and he most likely will have to go up against Kyle Walker, who, again, you're not going to really be able to outpace Kyle Walker, so what will Martinelli do on that left-hand side? That's the biggest decision for Arteta. That's, I think, one of the biggest battles in this game. If the left-hand side for Arsenal can overcome Manchester City's left-hand defense, I believe Arsenal win. If Arsenal's left-hand side, Zinchenko, Martinelli, or Trossard, or Xhaka, if that left-hand side is stalled out, I believe Manchester City win. I believe Manchester City will attack. I believe Manchester City can score. But I don't believe Arsenal can generate enough chances in the center and the right-hand side of the pitch to overcome Manchester City. If the left-hand side's not working, I do not believe Arsenal win this game. That is where the game will be decided, the left-hand side of the pitch. I believe City will score. I believe City will attack. I believe City will play well. I believe Arsenal will play well. If Arsenal can get the left-hand side of the pitch, I believe they win. If not, I believe Manchester City win. And if it's more even, obviously, then it might as well be a draw. I think it's going to be a fascinating game. I think the Emirates, the atmosphere is going to be amazing. Arsenal have to get off to a fast start. They have to, because the nervousness will creep in. Manchester City have been here, done that. They've done it before. They will not feel the pressure. They won't. It's Arsenal who feel the pressure. It's Manchester City's job to put the pressure on them. And even though Arsenal are top of the table, it's still the pressure is on them. It's going to be a massive, massive game. I believe you're also going to see from Manchester City, you're going to see Diaz, you're going to see Laporte, you're going to see Walker, you're going to see the old heads, the guys that have been there, done that. You're going to see De Bruyne, you're going to see Gundogan or Bernardo Silva. You're going to see Grealish on the left-hand side. You're going to see Riyad Mahrez on the right-hand side. It's going to be a team that Pep Guardiola trusts, his strongest team, and Arteta is going to put out his strongest team as well. We just don't know if it's going to be Martinelli or Trossard. Everywhere else, the team picks the same, which is Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, and Nketiah, and Martinelli and or Trossard. That will be the team. Those will be the teams. It'll be a fascinating game on Wednesday. Can't wait. Can't wait. I'm thinking about it. I'm nervous. It's a scared nervous as well. I feel scared as a fan, and I'm trying to fight that because I think the fans have a huge part to play in this game. Got to show up to the stadium and fight those fears as much as you can, and generate the positive energy and the positive atmosphere that will help the players feel it as well. It's going to be a huge, huge game at the Emirates, a true title decider, 6-point swing. Let's see how it goes. Guys, follow me on Twitter if you're not already. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and we'll bring the post-match reaction for that game from the Emirates Stadium on Wednesday night. Oh, it's gonna be a huge match. Take care of yourselves. Peace out.